Hello, welcome to my channel. You're watching What Helen Reads and I'm Helen, and today I've got another romance recommendation video for you. So today I'm talking about romance books where the main characters somehow have to spend time apart. Now sometimes with a third act breakup, people split up and then get back together again. But that's not what this is about. This is about stories where the characters are forced to spend time apart because of something that's happened, because they can't actually be together even though they really want to be. And really this is about love spanning many years, many decades in some cases, and it doesn't matter how long these characters have been apart, they still absolutely love each other and want to be together. I've actually got 10 recommendations for you today, so let's get stuck in. Okay, so the first one I want to recommend today is this one here. It is Relentless Hunter by Maggie Cole, and it's book 10 in the Mafia Wars series. Now this series is absolutely fantastic and it is an investment. Obviously there's 10 books. However, it's worth reading them in order to get to this final book. Now the main characters in this particular one are Brenna and Finn. Now we've known of Finn's character for many books because he is in the O'Malley family. He is related to Liam, who is kind of head of the family now, and also they spent time together in prison. So Liam and Finn spent a lot of time in prison. However, where Liam got out after 15 years, Finn was in prison for 2 decades. And the reason he went to prison was to protect the woman he loves, and that is Brenna. So Finn and Brenna had an absolutely magical romance. Very young, they fell in love with each other and wanted to be together forever. However, circumstances kind of pushed them apart. There were some very bad people in their lives, and a man ended up dying. And although Finn didn't do the crime, he went to prison for the crime, but very much to protect Brenna. The thing is, the night that this all went down, Brenna goes missing. No one knows what's happened to her, and Finn has never stopped loving her or thinking about her. And when he finally gets out of prison, he basically makes it his mission in life to find out exactly what happened to Brenna, where she went, and to make sure that she's okay. And it turns out that Brenna is not okay. She's had her own terrible 20 years when she's been apart from Finn. And actually when this all kind of went down, she didn't just run off and leave Finn in the lurch. She was actually taken by some bad people, and she has not been living a great life ever since. And of course, eventually, as we go through the story, if we go through all those books, but basically this book recounts everything from even before the events of book 1. We find out exactly what happened, why Finn went to prison, what happened to Brenna, and then we track all the way through all of the storylines in all of these books until the end, when, like I say, we find out finally what's happened to Brenna and they are reunited. And I just absolutely love this one. I think the pining between this couple is amazing, and also the fact that, like I say, their romance, their love has lasted for 2 decades, where they truly were the only one for each other, and they finally get their second chance at a HEA, and I really enjoyed it. So like I say, a massive investment, 10 books in this series, but would highly recommend. Then I've got Shattered Secrets by Lilian Harris, and this is a standalone, but it's actually a spin-off from her Messina crime family, because in this one we're following the Messina crime family's lawyer Hudson and his wife Hadley. Now obviously, like I say, Hudson is a lawyer and Hadley thinks he's just a regular lawyer, but what she doesn't know is that he's a lawyer for the mob, essentially. And so he, unfortunately, this couple are madly in love with each other. They've also going through some difficulties because they're trying for a baby and they're not able to conceive. And so this is really, like, you know, very hard for both of them, and very kind of, you know, difficult and challenging, but nevertheless they absolutely love each other. 2 pieces, are the love of each other's lives, and are an amazing couple together. The thing is, being the lawyer to a mob boss does potentially put Hudson in peril, and one night he goes missing and never returns, and Hadley is basically left wondering exactly what's happened to her husband. And they absolutely don't know what's happened to him. They don't know if he is dead, or something terrible has happened to him, and Hadley is absolutely devastated. And to make kind of matters worse, she then discovers that she's pregnant, and now while she is absolutely over the moon and delighted that she's finally pregnant, she is heartbroken over the fact that Hudson is going to completely miss out on this experience. And so then this couple actually are apart for at least 4 years. It's 4 or 5 years where they are apart. They are constantly searching for Hudson, and Hadley doesn't give up hope that her husband will eventually return. But you know, after 4 or 5 years, she's starting to lose a little bit of hope. And then they hear some news that actually Hudson has been found, except now he's living a completely different life in a completely different town. He's actually mayor of a town, and to make matters worse, he has actually got amnesia, so that when Hadley goes to see him, to say, hey, where the hell have you been? What has actually happened? I'm your wife. Hudson has no recollection of who she is. Still, their love is genuine and true and deep, and despite his amnesia, he is still very much drawn to this woman. He is very still attracted to her, and she is determined she's not going to give up on their relationship, and that she's going to help him to remember what they had. And come back to each other. And of course, while this is all going on, they also try and figure out how Hudson ended up in this situation, who did this to him, and what is actually going on. So I thought this was a really, really good romance, but also a bit of a mystery as well, in terms of who's responsible for keeping them apart for so many years. Then we have Darkest Sins by Neva, Altaj, and this is book 9 in the Perfectly Imperfect series. This is another mafia romance. It's also an age gap, sort of forbidden romance as well, and we're following Kai and Nera in this one. This is actually Neva Altaj's latest release in this series and my favourite so far, so would definitely highly recommend. Now again, here's another couple that really shouldn't be together. Kai is actually an assassin. We've met him in previous books, and he is kind of working for this sort of secret organisation that's trained him to be a ruthless, emotionless machine when it comes to doing his job. And our heroine in this one is Nera. She is kind of a mafia princess, and she you know, is trying to ensure that she doesn't have to go into an arranged marriage quite so soon, and she's training to be a vet, and therefore she's kind of like helping out at a local vet's. Now one day when she's locking up the surgery, she sees that Kai is in a kind of an alleyway. It looks like he is bloody. He's certainly got some injuries, and she decides she's going to stop and help. And Kai warns her off and says, you know, you really don't want to stop and help me, but she is adamant, and she takes him back to the veterinary clinic and kind of like, you know, does what she can to prevent the wounds getting any worse, basically. And so he is then in a state where he can go and fully recover from his injuries, but he becomes obsessed with her and starts to kind of stalk her and find ways that they're going to be able to bump into each other again, even going to the lengths of basically injuring himself so he can go back and she can basically patch up his wounds once more. Now they do start a relationship and they kind of fall in love. They know it's forbidden and they can't really be together, but they really want to. But then a situation happens, like events happen basically, that's going to take Kai away from her, and then he kind of disappears and doesn't come back again for many years, and they are separated again for a good 4 or 5 years. The thing is, during this time, Nera has to completely change everything about herself, because a couple of things happen. One, the leadership of the mafia that she's part of is very much challenged. The person who needs to take over is currently in prison. He can't, you know, step up to the plate, and this is her stepbrother, I think it is. He can't step up to the plate basically until he's out of prison. And she also finds out that she's pregnant with Kai's child. Now she needs to absolutely protect herself, protect her baby, and one of the only ways she can do this is by marrying someone in the mafia who's going to assume control of the mafia, and then she kind of takes over and becomes a hard-ass mafia boss woman, and everything she does is basically to save herself and her child. And throughout all of this, obviously she is desperately mourning the loss of Kai and doesn't know what's happened to him or if he's ever going to come back. And of course, something terrible has happened to Kai, and when he finally gets the opportunity to return, he is going to, absolutely. So absolutely love this one. The pining between them is fantastic. The longing for them to be back together is visceral on the page, and I would highly recommend. Then I want to talk about Torn by Carian Cole, and this is book 1 in the All Torn Up series, and we're following Torrin and Kenzie. Now this is also a spin-off from the Ashes and Embers series, because Torrin is best friends with Asher and Kenzie is Asher's daughter. So this one is a taboo age gap romance, and it's a best friend's daughter or father's best friend, however you want to look at it. Yeah, like I say, quite a taboo story, this one, because essentially Ash and his partner, who became his wife, fell pregnant at a very young age. They were just sort of 14, and so they very much were young parents and bringing Kenzie up into the world. And Torrin, as his best friend, was there right from the beginning, so knew Kenzie from a baby and was pretty much her pseudo uncle growing up. Now he was very protective of her, almost treated her like like he was the second father, really, was always there for her growing up. But then as she started to grow up as a child, they were very, very close. They spent a lot of time together, and Torrin really became sort of Kenzie's best friend. Now, as she got older and into her teens, her feelings started to change towards Torrin, because she actually started to have you know, sexual feelings for him, and she developed a crush on him, and fell in love with him, essentially. Then when Torrin kind of realises this and starts to have feelings for himself, he's kind of horrified and very much tries to stay away, because he knows that it's very taboo, there's a big age gap between them, but he also doesn't want to break his you know, best friend's trust, and he also doesn't want to feel like he is a predator in any way and kind of preying on this young girl. Still, she knows her mind and she absolutely wants to be with him, and she presses all of the buttons until finally they do start a relationship. Of course, they're going to have to keep this a secret and keep it away from Asher until finally kind of Asher finds out. He's not going to be too happy about it. Now, in some ways, the breakup of this couple is a bit of a third act breakup, and I said at the start this wasn't going to be that kind of recommendations video, but I don't feel that this is technically a third act breakup in the traditional sense, and this is more about two people needing to be apart so that they can figure out what it is that they want. So when Torrin and Asher kind of have this major kind of like fight, because obviously they're best friends, and Asher feels very much betrayed and you know, is concerned for his daughter. Kenzie kind of realises that there's more at stake here than just her relationship with Torrin, and that she doesn't want to destroy the relationship that he has with his best friend either. And Asher very much needs him because you know, things are going on in his own life, shall we say. So Kenzie makes the very grown-up decision to kind of leave. She leaves not only her father but also Torrin behind, and goes to stay with her aunt, so that she can really start to figure out what she wants, but also give them time together to kind of like, you know, mend their bridges and reform their relationship and figure it all out. So I really, really liked the way Carian Cole wrote this one. It's very, very angsty, yeah, absolutely felt the separation between this couple who were longing to get back together. Then turning to something much darker, I want to talk about Tormentor Mine by Zaires. In fact, the Tormentor Mine series, of which there are 4 books, and it's a 4-book series that I've recently read, and all 4 books follow the same couple, which is Peter and Sara. Now, over the course of these 4 books, Peter and Sara have to spend some time apart, but essentially what happens is that Peter is a special forces kind of army personnel, if you like, for the Russian military. He specialises in tracking down terrorists, torturing them for information and preventing terrorist attacks, that sort of thing. And at the very start of this book, he loses his wife and child in an attack on his village by the American government, and then this kind of then propels the story forward, because Peter becomes absolutely focused and determined to seek revenge on everyone and everything that had anything to do with the death of his wife and his son. That brings him then to America and into Sara's path, because Sara is married to a man who she believes is a journalist, but in fact is an undercover CIA agent, and he absolutely has something to do with the incident that caused Peter's wife to be killed. And so he's come to seek revenge and figure out where the husband is, and in order to get this information he kind of tortures Sara, and then once he's got the information he needs, he goes away and, you know, eliminates the husband. He becomes obsessed with Sara though and becomes her stalker, and eventually kind of injects himself into her life, and when the FBI realise that he's kind of like, you know, in the vicinity, Peter decides that he needs to escape, and he then kidnaps Sara and takes her with him, and then he takes her to a safe house in Japan. They spend a lot of time there, and by the time we get to book 3, which is Destiny Mine, they have started to form a quite strong connection. They're very attracted to each other, and Sara is really fighting her feelings for him, because while on one hand she really does care for him and likes him and is very attracted to him, she also is struggling with the fact that, you know, he is a bad person doing bad things, and has done some bad things not only to her but also her husband, obviously. So she really struggles with this throughout the whole book. Nevertheless, at the point we get to book 3 in this, Sara's mother is involved in a car accident, is critically ill in hospital, and Peter knows that Sara will never forgive him unless he takes her home so that she can be with her mother. And so that's what happens, and so he has to take her back home, drop her off so that she can spend time with her mother, but it means that he can't be with her anymore, and they now have to spend an extended amount of period of time apart, while Peter figures out a way to ensure that they can be together permanently going forward. So I really enjoyed this section because yeah, Sara was very conflicted about how much she was missing him and hoping he would return, and Peter really struggled without her, but was determined not to go back until he could have her, and they could get their HEA. So really like that one. And if you like a dark stalker, kidnapper romance, captor captive, classic captor captive, then I would highly recommend that one. Then I've got Home Game by Odette Stone, and this is book 2 in the Vancouver Wolves series. This one is a nice hockey romance. In this one we're following Ryan and Zoe, and Ryan is our famous ice hockey player. He earns a lot of money, lives in a very nice accommodations in Vancouver. Zoe, however, is homeless, and she's really struggling to make ends meet. And Ryan and Zoe first meet when they're in a coffee shop. She's just waiting for the time when she can go to a homeless shelter and kind of keep them warm. And Ryan is trying to sort out his finances and do his books. And the thing is, Zoe is very good at maths. She is very good at accountancy stuff. And when she sees that he's having problems, she kind of says, oh, you know, maybe I can help you. Now, she spends longer helping him than she intended to, which basically means that she's late for the homeless shelter and she has missed her slot. So she's now faced with having to spend the night on the street. Now, when they part, Ryan actually gives her his business card, and then she goes off to try and find somewhere safe to sleep for the night, but unfortunately she's attacked, taken to hospital, and the doctors find this business card in her pocket, so call Ryan to come and get her. And then when he figures out what's going on, he offers her a place to stay, and she ends up staying with Ryan for you know, a few days. And then he you know, and then he decides that he really wants to help her. They really like each other, and the more time he spends with her, the more he likes her and the more he wants to help. And they do start a relationship with each other. The thing is, there is a massive power imbalance in this relationship. Ryan has all the cards, Zoe is completely reliant on him, and you know, he doesn't want Zoe to be with him because she has to, and she doesn't have any other choice. They kind of want to be together, and Zoe also knows that she needs to figure things out and stand on her own 2 feet. And so this couple kind of very begrudgingly, but they know it's the right thing to do, is to spend some time apart so that Zoe can discover who she is, finish her education, get herself a job, a place to stay, and stand on her own 2 feet, so that when they get back together, they absolutely know that they both want to be together, that she is not completely dependent on him, and that she can look after herself and really level the playing field in their relationship. So I thought this was very interesting and enjoyable story and would highly recommend. And then I've got another dark romance, The Danger You Know by Lily White, and this is another age gap sort of stalker romance, and also our main hero in this one is also an assassin. We're following Ari and Adeline. Now basically Ari, like I said, is an assassin, and he is sent to assassinate Adeline's father when she's just sort of 16 years old, and Ari carries a lot of guilt for this, and leaving her kind of without any parents, without any proper guidance. And so after this event he decides that he's going to start stalking Adeline, but in his head it's so that he can make sure that she is well looked after and protected and that no one's going to hurt her, and he intends to do this until she is old enough to kind of look after herself. The thing is, over the years he gets more and more obsessed with her, more and more possessive of her, and basically spends every waking moment watching her and making sure she's okay. And if he can't do it because he's away on a job, he gets his friend to do it instead and keep an eye on her. Now as she goes through, you know, her teens and into her early 20s, she does get herself into quite a lot of trouble. She goes down a very slippery slope, hanging out with the wrong people, going to the wrong places, doing the wrong things. And unbeknownst to her, Ari is always there along the way, kind of mopping up her problems or seeking revenge on men that maybe have not treated her as well as he thinks they should have treated her, until finally Adeline is in a situation where she meets a man and she gets married, and Ari is content to let her do this, believing that she is finally going to be happy and safe. However, he continues to watch from afar, and it's not too long, just 6 months into the marriage, that Ari realises that this marriage isn't what it seems to be, and Adeline is not happy, and this guy is a bit of an asshole. So Ari has decided at this point that he's absolutely had enough, and he's going to come and get Adeline for himself. And then this stalker romance turns into a bit of a captive situation, and then finally everything is revealed. Adeline figures out who Ari really is, and they have to work through a lot of stuff. The thing is, there's other stuff going on in this story. The husband is not a great person, and so as part of the plot in this one, Ari and Adeline have to spend some time apart so that they can seek the proper justice, so, you know, Adeline goes knowing that Ari is still going to be out there somewhere, but they do need to spend this time apart to let the story unfold until we can get to the HEA we're all waiting for. Then I've got this one here, Resting Witch Face by Juliette Cross. This is book 5 in the Stay a Spell series and my favourite of the series overall. And this is my wonderful hardback limited edition copy that I got, which came with a little postcard, an illustration, and also signed by Juliette Cross as well. So that was part of a Kickstarter she did last year, and absolutely love these books. Okay, so what's this about? So this is a paranormal romance set in the town of New Orleans. Our main female character in this one is Jules. She is the head of the witches in New Orleans and also head of the paranormal community in New Orleans as well. And then the main male character in this one is Ruben, and he is a vampire. Now, we've known throughout books 1 to 4 that Ruben and Jules used to be together. They had some sort of relationship, but for whatever reason, we don't really know, they kind of split up, and 12 years have passed, and they are still not together. Now, it's very, very clear throughout this series that Ruben really is still in love with Jules, and he wants to get back together with her, and he's just waiting for his opportunity for this to happen. Jules, meanwhile, is very angry with Ruben. She really avoids being in the same room as him, really hates having to ask him for any favours, and is really trying to stay away. But the thing is, they're not going to be able to stay away from each other because they're essentially fated mates, and they're going to be together eventually. So this is a slightly different twist on some of the other stories, because this book really does start where this couple have already had their relationship 12 years before. They've split up for whatever reason, we just don't know what it is, and finally in this book we start to understand why Jules has spent 12 years without Ruben by her side, and I thought it was fantastically handled in terms of how we finally work out what's going on, why they had to be apart, and now maybe while the time is right when they can finally rekindle their relationship and get back together. And so, like I say, yeah, I really enjoyed this one, highly recommend. But you do, and I would recommend that you read them in order, because throughout the story this really builds up for us, you know, wondering what's going on between this couple, and then we get all our answers that we've been seeking in this 5th book. Then I want to recommend Give Me More by Sara, Cate, and this is book 3 in the Salacious Players Club. This one is an MMF story between Drake, Hunter and Izzy, and it's also kind of a bi awakening. It's based around a sex club, and it's also a best friend and a married couple basically. So Hunter and Iz are married. They've been married for about 10 years, and Hunter's best friend is Drake. Now Drake is bisexual, he's openly bisexual, has been for a long time, and it's also kind of well known that you know, he enjoys a very active sex life. And Hunter and Izzy are very much in love, and you know, they have had a very happy relationship. Now Hunter is one of the owners of the Salacious Players Club, and Drake doesn't directly own it, but he basically is kind of a sort of a builder, a workman, and has done all the renovations in the club. So he's very closely connected to the club, and they spend a lot of time together. And over the years, Hunter and Drake have spent a lot of time together as well. They're kind of like, you know, very much a trio. And it becomes even more than that throughout this book, when they kind of go on a bit of a road trip to check out some of the sex clubs, to find out what's working, what's not working, get some inspiration so they can bring it back and improve what's going on at the Salacious Players Club. And as a result of this, they end up kind of going to some sort of demonstrations, some classes and things, and Drake ends up in a scene on stage with Iz, and Hunter is watching this, and he decides that he is very turned on, and then he puts a proposal to Drake and Iz that maybe he can watch them having sex. And he thinks this will be a great turn on. Now, Iz is very concerned that this is going to damage their marriage. They're very happily married, but she is open to the suggestion. Meanwhile, Drake doesn't want to feel like he's just being used, because actually, like I said, he's bisexual and he cares for Iz and Hunter a great deal. And in fact, he's always kind of been very attracted to Hunter himself. And now he's sort of quite worried that Hunter's going to bring him into their marriage, but he's still going to be the spare wheel, basically the third part, if you like, and he's quite hesitant. But Hunter is quite adamant, and he kind of convinces them to do it. The thing is, Hunter is also starting to explore some of his own sexuality as well, starting to realise that he's actually attracted to Drake himself, but has you know, quite a lot of thoughts and feelings about this in his head, because his father was very he was, you know, homosexual, he was very anti-gay, and he's really drummed into Hunter that this is wrong in some way. So Hunter now has quite a battle in his own mind about this relationship and how it's going to work, and, you know, them being an actual throuple in this polyamorous relationship, rather than it being just you know, him watching Drake and his wife together. Now things come to a head in this book where actually Hunter is really struggling to deal with any of this, to deal with his feelings or the relationship with his wife and how things have started to change. And as a result, he makes a decision that he's going to kind of leave, and he leaves Iz with Drake. So I thought I wanted to include this one in here because, yes, again, technically it's kind of a third act breakup in a way, but throughout this, Drake and Iz are still very much together, and they are heartbroken that Hunter has kind of left them, but they also know he needs time away to come to terms with the relationship in his head, so that he doesn't feel guilty about what's happened and all of that good stuff. And so then we have this period of time when these people are not together, and trying to figure life out. And while Drake and Iz are happy together, they are, you know, devastated that Hunter is not with them, and they're not complete until he returns. So I thought this is a really good one to throw in here because, yeah, the pining when they're apart is, you know, you can feel it on every page basically. So I would highly recommend. And now a final one that I wanted to throw in here. I've talked about it a couple of times before, and that is The Host by Stephanie Meyer. This is a very chunky book, but I did think this worked really well in this category. Now, just as a bit of a sort of a, if you don't know, the host has no sexual content in it whatsoever. So if you're looking for a spicy, steamy time, this is not your book. But what it is a fantastic story of love. So this is less of a romance and more of a love story, I would say. But I think this demonstrates how love can span any amount of time, and no matter what happens, if two people are truly meant to be together, they will find their way back to each other. Because essentially what happens in this is a kind of a sci-fi romance, I would say. This story is about humanity is on the edge of extinction, because there is this kind of alien species called the Souls who have invaded planet Earth. However, they're small creatures that can burrow into the back of someone's head and pretty much take over the body. All of the humans that are now on Earth are basically have been taken over by these souls. So even though these souls have come and taken over all of the human bodies, they aren't actually violent, and they've come to experience rather than to destroy. And one of the reasons they picked humanity is because from a distance it looked like that we were kind of brutes. We were capable of despicable things, and we were constantly at war with each other, and the souls genuinely believe that they've come to Earth to make Earth a better place. Now, obviously, as at first the humans weren't sure what was going on, and then eventually people figured it out, and there is now kind of a small number of humans that are still themselves, and they're kind of like freedom fighters, if you like, and living in underground caves in secret locations to try and stay away from these aliens, but also to try and fight back and kind of retake humanity, get their bodies back basically. And so this is the story of Melanie Strider, who is human. She managed to escape the initial waves of the invasion, if you like, with her younger brother, and they lived on their own for many years, sort of scavenging for food and staying out of sight. And then one day they bumped into another human called Jared, and Jared changed their life because he was absolutely brilliant at surviving this in this world, evading the aliens and keeping them safe. And over time, Jared and Melanie forged a relationship and fell in love. And this is going to be a love that's going to span all time. Now, one day Melanie is sort of out, separated from Jared and her younger brother, because she's kind of gone on a mission to try and find her cousin, who she believes is still alive. While she's on this mission, she actually gets taken by the aliens, and then an alien by the name of Wanderer is placed into her body. Now, they put Wanderer in there because Wanderer is considered to be very, very strong and brave, and they think that she's going to be able to break the mind of Melanie to figure out all her secrets and figure out where all these humans are hiding, and track down the last surviving humans. Of course, when Wanda gets in there, Melanie is not going to give up her brain or her body as easily as all the other humans have seemed to do, and she steadfastly holds on to herself, and also guards her biggest secrets as close to her as possible, and that is Jared and her brother. And slowly over time, Melanie is the one who persuades Wanderer, and starts to ensure that Wanderer falls in love with the memories that she has of her, her partner and her brother, until the point where kind of Wanderer leaves her own society, turns away from her own society, kind of escapes, and goes in pursuit of Jared. Like I say, this is a truly wonderful story of how, even though Melanie's body has been taken over by an alien, the love that she has for Jared is so strong, the memory is so powerful, that she convinces this alien that's in her body to also be in love with him and go and find him so that she can ultimately be with him. Now, of course, it's not going to be that easy, because when she turns up, Jared's very much going to believe that she's been taken over. He's not going to believe this alien who says that Melanie is still alive inside her head, and of course they're not going to immediately get their HEA, but it is, like I say, a fantastic story of how love just endures, and how Jared will always be in love with Melanie and vice versa. So if you haven't read this yet, I really would recommend it. It's a very long book, like I say. It's quite slow moving in parts, and there is no spice in this one at all, but the love story in this one is immense. And I also recommend you, if you do read this one, if you haven't read it before, then you consider picking up the audiobook, because the narrator, although has a very distinctive, very unique voice, and at first you might not think you like it, trust me, as you listen, it's a 24-hour audiobook, you start to realise just how amazing this narrator is, because she makes all the voices really unique, and yeah, just I find something really, really hypnotic and also quite calming about the way she speaks as well. So like I say, I would highly recommend. So there you go, that's 10 romance recommendations for characters that have had to spend a lot of time apart, where their love is going to make sure that they finally find their way back to each other. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content from me, and all that's left for me to say is thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. It becomes very, very, yeah, that's not what happens. Backtrack. Then turn into the number one. Then I want to recommend, okay, the first one I want to recommend is this one here. It's Ruthless. I've actually got 10 recommendations for you today, so let's get straight. I've actually got 10 recommendations for you today, so let's get straight in. So let's get stuck in.